Hello friends, and welcome to Butterfly Meadows Homestead. I'm Dorinda, and today I want to continue my series on talking about the different functions of the KBS bread machine. And today I am going to talk about the yogurt function. I am also going to talk about several of the other lesser used functions on the bread machine. But first I'll be covering the yogurt function. So the yogurt function on the KBS bread machine is function number 15. At least on this model that I have, which is the 17-in-1 KBS bread machine. Function number 15 is the yogurt setting. The yogurt setting can be set for 4 hours up to 13 hours. It defaults to 8 hours, and you can adjust that up or down to 4 hours or 13 hours. When you first turn it on, it will stir for about 2 or 3 minutes. That is not noted on the program working timetable, but I have tested it and know that it will stir for about 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. So if you want to put your milk in your pan and your yogurt to inoculate it and let the bread machine do the mixing, you can do that. But if you don't want the bread machine to do the mixing, just leave the paddle out and it will do the same thing. Now, I tested this with a thermometer that I have to check the temperature because I wanted to know how hot it is getting. And it got up to 104 degrees, which I think is a great temperature for yogurt. It's not too hot and not too cool. And so that's something you want to know if you're using something else besides a yogurt maker to make your yogurt. You need to know what temperature that it is bringing everything to, because too high of a temperature can kill bacteria that you want to multiply, and too low of a temperature will not be high enough for the bacteria to multiply. So you want a good in-between temperature where the bacteria can multiply happily and not be killed off. So it got up to 104, which is wonderful, which means I could use the KBS bread machine to make El Ruderi yogurt, which cannot get, you don't want it to get hotter than 110, and really 110 is a little warm. The problem is it only goes for 13 hours, which means every 13 hours I would have to reset it until I got up to 36 hours. So that's just something to keep in mind. But if I didn't have another means of making the yogurt, then I definitely could use the KBS machine to do the El Ruderi. I will put a link to the El Ruderi video here in case you want to know more about that. It's a great yogurt. It really helped me. I had really bad rosacea, and it helped to clear it up, and as long as I eat it every day, it really helps keep the rosacea at bay. It did not go away 100%, but it did clear it way up, and I don't have the problem like I had before I started eating the El Ruderi. Now I want to talk about some of the other lesser used functions. One of them is the sugar-free function, which is function number 7. And the sugar-free function total working time for a 1-pound loaf is 3 hours and 4 minutes. Total working time for a 1.5-pound loaf is 3 hours and 11 minutes, and a 2-pound loaf is 3 hours and 18 minutes. When you use the sugar-free function, it will continuously stir for 5 minutes when you first put it in. Then it will rest for 2 minutes. Then it will stir again for 20 minutes. And then it will ferment for 58 minutes. Then after 58 minutes, it will shape, which means it's going to knock the dough down. And then it will ferment or do the last final rise for 49 minutes and 35 seconds. After that, it will bake a 1-pound loaf for 48 minutes, a 1.5-pound loaf, 55 minutes, and a 2-pound loaf, 1 hour and 2 minutes. So the sugar-free function is very similar to the French bread function. It's not exact, but the amount of minutes that it is different is not enough to affect how your bread would turn out if you were making sugar-free bread. If you need to make sugar-free bread and don't have a sugar-free function on your bread machine, don't worry. You could use the French bread or the regular soft bread function, either of those will work fine for just about any bread. Now, I also want to talk about the multigrain function. The multigrain function is very similar to the whole wheat function, but it does have a little bit of difference when it comes to the rise time. So let's go over the working timetable for the multigrain function. 1 pound loaf is 3 hours. A 1.5 pound loaf is 3 hours and 7 minutes. And a 2 pound loaf is 3 hours and 14 minutes. That's total working time. So it will stir for 5 minutes, then it will rest for 2 minutes. Then it will stir for 22 minutes. Then it will ferment for 48 minutes. And then after the 48 minutes, it will knock down or shape the dough for 25 seconds. And then it will ferment for 53 minutes and 35 seconds, which for the whole wheat, it's 49 minutes and 35 seconds. So you've got 4 more minutes of rise time for the multigrain. And then it's a little bit less for the first ferment. It's 2 minutes less. So it's very similar. They kind of shortened the first ferment and lengthened the last ferment. That's really just about the only difference in those two, other than maybe a couple of minutes of stir time. So multigrain and whole wheat should work the same as well. And now I want to talk about the Milky loaf. Now, I'm sure most of you have probably seen those little videos on YouTube or TikTok or wherever with the Milky bread, the milk bread, you know, where they show this soft, fluffy bread they're tearing into pieces. And it's really what you put in the bread that makes the big difference, not these minute here and minute there as far as the stir and the fermentation. But the Milky loaf, a 1 pound loaf is 2 hours and 59 minutes. A 1.5 pound loaf is 3 hours and 6 minutes. And a 2 pound loaf is 3 hours and 13 minutes. It will stir continuously for 3 minutes. Then it will rest for 1 minute. Then it will stir for 24 minutes. And then it will ferment for the first time for 48 minutes. Then it will shape or knock down the dough for 25 seconds. And then the final rise is 53 minutes and 35 seconds. So it will also then bake a 1 pound loaf for 48 minutes, 1.5 pound loaf for 55 minutes, and a 2 pound loaf for 1 hour and 2 minutes. So that is what the Milky loaf bread setting does. And once again, you could use any of these other settings, the soft white bread, the sweet bread, the French bread, any of those would do the same thing basically within a couple of minutes that the Milky loaf would do. Now I want to talk about the cake function. And the first thing I want to say about the cake function is I don't recommend using it. Because the cake function, it's a 1 hour and 33 minute process. Here's what it does. It will stir for 5 minutes and then there's no rest, and then it will stir for 18 minutes, which means for 23 minutes it is going to stir. That is a long time to stir a cake mixture. Now when you use cake, you're not using yeast, you're using baking powder, or baking soda and salt and a combination of chemical reactive ingredients that cause something to rise. 23 minutes is just too long to stir that. After that 23 minutes, then it's going to bake for 1 hour and 10 minutes. And the books even tell you, if you read the documentation that came with your bread machine, they tell you that it produces a very dense cake. Well, the reason is you've already wasted your rise time that you would have got from the chemical reaction in that 23 minutes of stirring. So I don't recommend using the cake function. I would, if I wanted to bake a cake in the bread machine, I would stir it up by hand, pour it in the pan, and use the bake function. I hope you are getting a lot of use out of your bread machine. I hope you're using it every day or so, like I do mine, to make delicious, healthy bread for your family. Look forward to more videos coming out with more bread recipes that you can make and enjoy. I am so glad you joined me today. And if you have stuck around this long, then perhaps you enjoy watching my videos. So I just want to put a plug in for my other channel. I have a second channel. It is for Christian devotions. It's called Devotions with Dorinda. I'm going to leave a link to it in the description of this video below, and I'll try to put a card here so that you can jump over there. I'm trying to build that channel, and I would love to have you over there. So I just every now and then will share a Bible study devotion with you, encouraging things, and I think you would enjoy it if you like that kind of thing. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and share and come back again. I love to spend time with you. God bless. Bye-bye.